Hello, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, wherever you are. This is Stacy Kruzik from the Developer Relations team here at Zebra Technologies, and we're going to start off our Dev Talk in just a few moments here with Robin West, but let's give it a few seconds here and allow everybody to join in. Hello, everyone. This is Stacy Kruzik from the Developer Relations team. We're starting right at the top of the hour for our Dev Talk today. Welcome to everyone. Thank you for coming. I wanted to go over a couple of things, some housekeeping rules, things of that nature, and then we're going to kick it off the first one of the year with Robin West from our Savanna Data Services team. Just a couple of things here. As you'll see on your screen, this is our Zebra Developer Portal. If you are not participating and part of our community, it's free to join. We encourage you to join, and then you will receive all the news, events, and information regarding Zebra developers and our offerings and the ways that we can support and help you. So please go to developer.zebra.com and sign up. You can always email us if you're not able to sign up there at developer@zebra.com. And I, Stacy, will be able to help you as soon as I am able to. And I invite you to join us in our community. A couple of housekeeping rules for today. We typically take all of our questions at the end of the Dev Talk, so you can go ahead and type those in your window in your screen here, and then I'll go down the list with our presenter, Robin West, today, and she can address all of your questions. Today's presentation, as we kick off the new year, is about our Savanna Data Services. We're excited about opportunities and offerings that we'll potentially have this year. So Robin today is just going to give you a brief overview of what's coming, what's anticipated in terms of arrivals, and what you can expect in the coming new year. And then we'll have subsequent Dev Talks going a little bit more into depth on some of those new API offerings and such for you towards the end of the middle to end of the year as well. So continue to participate in our community, and you can join us at every Dev Talk. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Robin West. There you go, Robin.
Thanks, Stacy. So thank you all for joining, and I appreciate you having the time to join us today. So we're going to be talking about device-driven data with data services. Got a quick agenda here. We're going to talk a little bit about what some of the new things that we've come out with recently. A quick overview of just accessing the APIs. I know we've talked about this a few times, but just wanted to give a quick overview again, just so everyone understands it. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the new things that are going to be coming out fairly soon and throughout the year, and what that actually means for you as developers. So what's new with the data services? Last time we had one of these talks, we had a couple of APIs in our production environment, and we had a couple of APIs in our sandbox environment. The new things in production right now are what we're calling primarily the asset ownership service. And I'm going to be going more into depth on that throughout this webinar. But what that really entails is getting access to your Zebra tenant. And I'll talk what that means in a few minutes. But these are all APIs around accessing that tenant and getting access to your devices based on your tenant. In the sandbox, we have a bunch of new APIs around our barcode intelligence systems, and we'll go into more in depth in that in blogs and other different things later on, but they're fairly simple. Please feel free to play around with those and give us feedback on them, because that's really why they're in the sandbox, is to give you guys a place to see what we're working on, see what we're doing, and give us feedback so that we know where we're going. Certainly, if you have new ideas of things that you'd like to see us come out with, there's a whole idea area of the portal that you can go in to submit your ideas or vote on ideas that have already been submitted, just to let us know, if you think that's a great idea, that's something that you'd like to see from us. And we can use that feedback to go in and actually ideate on it, and work on those ideas with you. So that's where we're looking at from that perspective. Most of the new things in the sandbox, again, are for barcode intelligence. The barcode enrichment's kind of a cool one. It takes all of our barcode intelligence APIs and essentially mashes them all up, so that essentially you simply put in a barcode and it attempts to figure out what it is. So if you put in a book ID, it will attempt to figure out, okay, what kind of barcode is this? Is it a book? Is it is it an airplane? Who knows? And pull that information out. But it also, you can put in something like a healthcare product, and it'll attempt to figure that out, as well as figure out if there's any FDA recalls on it. And it sort of mashes up a bunch of our different barcode intelligence APIs to give you essentially one place to figure that all out. So it's something that we are highly encouraging you guys to try out, because we really want feedback on it. How well is it working? Is it doing what you want it to do? So that we can figure out if later on we want to, really, pull out all of that together, and if that's actually going to work for you. So accessing the APIs, the big thing in order to actually use the APIs is to get a key. The way to get a key is to go in and into the portal, and I'm actually going to pull it up so that we can see it in action. So you go to the developer portal, and this is the home page for it if anyone's not been there before. And there's a couple of different ways to get into Savanna Data Services now. You can go into products and platforms and go into Savanna Data Services here, and that takes you to the home page for Savanna. Or you can actually go in under Develop API Documentation, either from here or in the list here, but I like to do it from here because it's quick. And this is actually our production APIs. Easy to pull up and easy to find them here if you're looking for that. But either way, in order to actually access the different packages that we have available, you would go ahead and under the My Savanna menu, click on packages, and you can see our catalog. There's a whole bunch of free ones up here now, as well as ones that are pay for packages. So if you're interested in FDA recalls and you want to try it out, there's a free one here. It gives you a certain number of calls per day for free, and that renews every day. So it gives you a way of accessing them, and yeah, it's a good system. So once you've actually selected your package, and there's no need to put any money in now. Yes, it says purchase plan, but this is basically saying, yes, I understand that this is a free package or this is a paid package, and this is how much I would be charged once my free usage is done. This one, if you select this one, you're not going to be charged at all. You'll just get a certain number of uses per day. So once you've actually done that, then the next step is to create an app. It's a couple of different methodologies for doing this. You can essentially create a single app for your use cases. Or once you're actually starting to get more towards your production types of systems, you might want to create different apps for actually your different apps, or different apps for your different customers. So say as you're going forward, and you think you're going to be charging your customers a certain amount for usage of your application, and you want to roll the cost of the APIs, if you're using paid for APIs, into that cost, you can actually separate them out by creating different apps for those different customers. That gives you the ability to say, okay, this customer has used the API this much, so I can charge them accordingly. Gives you a little flexibility in that, and we're continually actually working on different ways of working with you as a community to enable different pricing strategies. So if you do have a question about how to pay for APIs in different ways than the current setup that we've got, you can let us know by contacting the Savanna partner team at zebra.com, and we'll work with you to figure out the best way of handling that for your particular use cases and needs. But once you have that, you can get a nice little consumer key, and this is where you're going to be able to put it into the APIs and utilize them. So what I'm going to talk about a little bit today is what's called over-the-top applications. When we talk about over-the-top applications, one of the big questions we get is, why would I want to send my scans, my barcode scans or my RFID reads to the cloud? I already have an infrastructure. I already have applications running on my local devices, or even running in the cloud. Why would I actually want to send these scans to Savanna data, to Zebra data services? So the main reason for this is what we call over-the-top applications. And that's essentially any applications where you're going around a traditional infrastructure, or want to go around a traditional infrastructure. A main use case for this, or one use case for this, is a retailer. As many of our customers have traditional infrastructures, have very long-lived infrastructures that have been going on for a long time. You can't, you as the developer community probably realize that you can't go in and make a huge amount of changes to those infrastructures. Sometimes the different companies are willing to make major changes, but if you've worked with our community or our users for a long time, you might realize that it's like pulling teeth a lot of times to get them to change their infrastructures. So doing over-the-top applications actually gives you a way of continuing to utilize the traditional infrastructure, but also adding additional value on top of that, going around it in order to provide additional value. So, a retailer with a point of sale system, they're doing scans, they're doing print jobs of receipts or different things, shelf labels or whatever it is they're doing with that system. But say they want to get additional analytics that their POS isn't providing. That is one of the situations where we can, basically add a configuration to their devices and send those scans and prints to data services, and giving you as a developer community access to that data outside of the traditional infrastructure. So that is, just one use case. We've worked with several medical institutions lately around, they're dealing with medications, giving their medications to their customers and their patients, and they want to be able to be notified right away if there's a recall on that medication, or if it's been expired, or if it's gone outside of the temperature range that it should be in. They don't want, they might have received it weeks ago and the recall came in today. They want to know that right away as soon as they've scanned it in order to, give that to the user as part of the 5 rights. So having that notification isn't part of their normal infrastructure, and it's something that you can use an over-the-top application to essentially send that scan to data services, and will provide you with the information around, is there a recall or not, or is the temperature out of range or not, depending on the barcode, and those types of components and data. So that's another one. Warehouses. The traditional supply chain, a product might flow through multiple different companies and hands as it gets transported around the globe to get to their end users. There's a lot of new infrastructure and desiring to actually have an immutable record that goes across multiple different companies to be able to tell the full history of a product. And the current infrastructure doesn't actually do a very good job of that. So that's where things like the blockchain is really nice and comes in handy to be able to provide that immutable record that shows not just for one company, but multiple companies, a specific product and where it's changed hands. And that, again, is an over-the-top application. It goes around the normal infrastructure for those warehouses and goes through their normal processes of scanning the products as they come in the door and as they go out the door. But it just adds that additional layer on top of it in order to provide that additional value. So I hope that makes some clarifications around why some of this stuff is important and why it's a good idea to consider ideas around why we would want to connect up scanners, printers, RFID readers to the cloud in order to provide these additional over-the-top applications. There's a lot of good reasons, from a state infrastructure to say RFID readers, removing the local infrastructure needs for a lot of those. But the over-the-top applications are an interesting thing that we want our community to think about because there's real value there in being able to provide your customers with that ability to add additional value without changing their infrastructure. And from the years of working here, we can pretty much tell you they'll thank you for that. So when it comes down to it, there's a few things to keep in mind when you're dealing with our devices. We want to make sure that as you're working with our devices and as your customers are working with our devices, that there's a clear path of ownership of those devices and security around accessing the data around our devices. So a scanner being connected up, if all you're caring about is the data around, the battery history of that scanner, there's a certain amount of good use cases to get that and have access to that, but you don't necessarily want your competitors to have access to that. And you don't necessarily want just any old Joe to have access to that information. And then when you talk about actually like scan data and print data and the actual stuff that's coming in, the data that's flowing through that device, then it becomes even more important that only the people that you have given access to those devices have that access. And that's where this concept of tenants come in. It's essentially the corporate account. We, in a lot of ways, we actually associate our tenants with our corporate accounts that we might have. And right now, Zebra has a number of different registered partners and customers with corporate accounts that, a lot of times actually at this point already have a tenant in our system. And this is something that we've very newly come out with to be able to track not only our devices, primarily right now looking at just the device data itself, things like battery and the settings on that device. But over time, it might also include the actual data that's coming through those devices for your use. Though our terms and conditions are very clear as far as how we will use the data and what data we own, what data you own, from a customer perspective. So that's something that I would keep in mind is that, from a standpoint of device data itself, we own that data from a Zebra perspective. But from the standpoint of the data that's flowing through that device, you guys own that data. And we want to make sure that that data is secure and you guys have the ability to share that data with whoever you want to share it with. And you have certainly the right to give us the data or not give us the data as you see fit. We're not grabbing that data without your consent. But if you do decide to send that data into Savanna, as I was mentioning in the last slide, there's a lot of benefits to that. But overall, the main way that we're handling that is through these tenants. By default, if you log into the developer portal and create essentially an API key, like I was showing earlier, you get a personal tenant. And any devices that you might register under that personal tenant are essentially considered your personal devices. We also, like I said, have a number of different corporate accounts that are already registered. The devices that are currently in a lot of those corporate accounts are devices that have been registered through our Zebra One Care program. So if you've got a support contract with Zebra, those devices will likely actually show up under your corporate account. So there's a couple of different ways of actually utilizing this at this point. If you're an independent developer or a small ISV, then you can basically create one API key and just the rest of your team, the team uses it as under your personal tenant. Or basically you can work with Zebra to work with our Savanna authorization service to actually create a corporate account and open that up for multiple users to access that corporate account. And then again, if you're an actual corporate user, say a end user customer of Zebra's and have multiple different Zebra devices and maybe want to open that up for partners, then again, that's another use case for using our Savanna authorization service, which is public and live right now. Unfortunately, the Savanna authorization service is fairly complicated, and we don't have complete documentation for it yet. And in fact, we're recommending right now, don't attempt to use the API without actually contacting us and working with us to set up the rules and roles, because you can actually kind of mess up your account if you start just doing things with the Savanna authorization service and not knowing what you're doing. So we are working on the more self-service documentation, but for right now, the best way to handle this is actually to contact the Zebra Savanna support, which we have a phone number for on the portal. So that's the best way of handling that. But if you're just utilizing, if you're just wanting to work with a single, your personal tenant, there's a couple of ways to do that, and I'm gonna pull up my Postman collection. So say I'm an external user or a standard developer user, and I want to access just what tenants I have personally under my account. And normally speaking, you're going to just get essentially a basic account that says that you own this account. It's going to have your email address that you registered into the Zebra Developer Portal, and then it'll have a basic account number associated with that. If you are a corporate user who potentially may have an account with Zebra, and this includes partners and end user customers, then you would actually potentially have multiple different accounts or different tenants associated with you. So with my Zebra login, I get my personal tenant, and I also get my Zebra tenant because I'm a member of the Zebra corporate entity. And this API is actually posted up on the portal to allow you to pull this information. And then we have the asset ownership service, which is another API that we've got up there. And this is allowing you to get access to see what devices are currently registered with you. There's a couple of different APIs in there, but one of them is basically telling you what asset types are available. So giving you a good feel for what types of devices and things that we have currently sort of set up to be working with us. And so it gives you a bunch of different things in here, and say I grab one of these, there's another API that I can throw in there, and it'll tell me, I don't have any of these registered, but yeah, it would tell me if there were any actual devices that are currently enrolled into Savanna and sending data to us. Now the data could be just basic device data, or it could be the data that is basically sending us things like scans and prints and reads. But for the basic device data, we can actually get that now from a prototype API called Mobile Computer Basic Device Information. And this is basically All of our mobile computers on a regular basis, and in fact all of our printers as well, on a regular basis attempt to send its basic device information to Savanna in order to just, give us that data for analytics. But we're actually opening that up and allowing you guys to access that data as well. So you can basically use this API, and all you have to do is give it basically the serial number, the device ID, and your API key. And as long as it's a device that's within your tenant, you can access a lot of the information about that device. So this is a nice API that actually utilizes that tenant system. Another one that goes through that is the battery health. So this will tell you actually how much time is likely remaining useful on your battery. So it'll tell you whether or not you might have 6 months left on your battery, or if you should replace it right away because it's probably going to die on you. And it gives you that information through this API. Again, this one is also hooked up to your tenant so that you have access to that data, but nobody else, unless you've provided them that access, does. So I just walked through these. In order to enroll new devices into the service, we highly encourage you to actually contact us to get access to the portion of the site where you can do that. It's a controlled access right now, but we very much want to encourage everyone to actually work with us on this and enroll some devices, start working with them. Once you're enrolled, or once you're set up, you'll be able to access the enrolled device system that's part of the portal. And this will allow you to, I don't have anything set up here, but let me see if I can pull it up on my Zebra account. Yeah. And I'm going to pull up mobile computers. So essentially, these are mobile computers that have been enrolled into the Zebra tenant, and they, there's a way to actually add new ones, and then add subscriptions. So adding a new device to the portal means first, whether it's a mobile computer or an RFID reader, it means actually installing an application on those devices. This is just a short-term measure though, until we have it built into our operating systems for those devices to be able to do it without having that install. But that's one of the reasons why you would have to talk with us in order to do that, because we have to give you that application. So once you have that application, then you go through a quick process of just enrolling in the system. It doesn't take more than just a scan of a barcode or putting in a ID into the device, and it connects right up, and you're good to go. Once you have it connected, then you can set up subscriptions, and these are kind of cool. Basically, if you have an RFID reader or a mobile computer, let me pull up the RFID readers because those are fun. It gives you the way to set up a webhook subscription. And this is your way of actually accessing the reads from our RFID device and utilizing that data in different ways. So basically, it gives you a way to set up an endpoint on your end, on your application, and anytime a reader detects a new device or a new tag coming into its field of view, it will send off a notification to your endpoint to let you know about that. And that, and anytime it actually detects that a tag has been gone for, I think it's 5 seconds, it'll also send you a notification of that. So it tells you when something's entered your field of view and left your field of view. We're working on different ways of handling that, and different possibilities for different scenarios, but that's a nice, clear system for handling a lot of RFID types of scenarios. So adding a subscription is actually fairly simple. I'm going to go through it real quick, but not too long. You would name your subscription. The webhook link is your endpoint link. This is basically the link to your application, your API that you want us to send these notifications to. The API key is the API key that you've created on the portal for your application. You've got two options as far as how to filter what scans come into you by devices. So when you add a device to Savanna, you're encouraged to add a tag to that. And tags are a way of grouping devices. So say you have devices all at one store, you can group them by that with a tag, or you can group them by front office, back office, or that kind of thing. So tags are your way of grouping devices, or you can specify specific device IDs in order to basically say which devices you want to have send you those notifications. You're going to select your tenant, and then there's a couple of different ways of filtering. So essentially, you can say, I only want to get reads that have this this ID type, or this this preface to them, or that sort of thing. You can actually filter that, and there's a help page on here to say what kind of filters they are. There's kind of a little language to do that. And then you can also select to enrich the data. So say what you're reading is UPC codes. We can either send you just the raw UPC codes, or we can use some of our barcode intelligence APIs to enrich the data. So you basically have the option of not just getting the actual UPC code, but maybe getting the full information about that UPC using our UPC lookup function API. So those are some of the different ways of utilizing that. And I think I went through the quick device health here. So one of the other things that we are working on, and actually will have available in February, is our convenience SDK. So basically, we'll have SDKs for Java, .NET, JavaScript, and Python, and they will be available as source code on GitHub, on our github.com/zebra organization that we've got up there, and they'll have sample apps. We'll also be posting them on all the major package management sites, so NuGet, Maven, PyPy, that kind of thing, so that it makes it easier to get access to them. These are just convenience SDKs that give you easier access to work with our data services from mobile devices. The first set of them coming out is likely to be focused primarily on our barcode intelligence APIs. So things like the UPC lookup and the FDA recall APIs. So those APIs will be available through that SDK, and they'll be very extensible, so that as we add new SDKs and or new APIs, and or you see additional things that you want to do with it, they'll be available to be expanded upon as time goes on. So I think that's the last of my slides in there. I'm going to open it up for questions.
You didn't hear this from me.
Okay, there don't seem to be any questions. If you guys have anything right now, I would encourage you to put it in our question box, and I can go ahead and ask that of Robin to respond to you. We'll just give it a second here, a few moments rather, and
if you think of questions later on, you can certainly post them to the portal, or post them as on the forums, or post them as comments on this DevTalk that we have up there. So either way, we will be sure to get back to you and try to answer as many of these questions as possible. I know there's a lot of things that are more coming soon this time around. but I hope it gives you an idea of where we're going with our data services and some of the things that we'll be coming out with fairly soon.
Okay. So it doesn't look like anyone has any questions today, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. We've recorded this Dev Talk, so it will be available online. And as Robin pointed out, feel free to comment there and let us know if you have any questions that come to mind after the Dev Talk. Otherwise, we'll see you next month in February for our next Dev Talk, and have a great day.